welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're focusing on a really crucial topic, understanding why climate change matters.
That's right.
We'll be exploring an article called Why Does Climate Change Matter? Together.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're learning English with us, this should be helpful. We'll try to explain the main ideas clearly, at a good pace.
Yeah. Hopefully you can pick up some useful words and phrases about the environment, too.
Exactly. So our mission today is really to pull out the key reasons why climate change is such a big deal based on this article, but without getting too overwhelming.
Agreed. Let's keep it clear and focused on why this issue is so important for, well, everyone. So where should we start? Maybe with defining climate change itself?
Good idea. So the article, it says climate change is basically a long-term shift, a change in the average weather conditions we expect over, decades.
Right, decades or even longer.
It's not just the usual ups and downs, year-to-year weather stuff. We're talking about fundamental changes in those long-term patterns.
That's a really key distinction. You often hear global warming thrown around, sometimes it's the same thing.
Yeah, people use them interchangeably.
But the article clarifies that global warming is specifically about the increase in Earth's average temperature.
Oh, okay, just the temperature part.
Exactly. While climate change is, broader, it covers all sorts of long-term shifts, and that can actually include cooling in some places sometimes.
Right. Okay. And these changes, they show up in lots of different ways around the globe, don't they? The article gives some pretty impactful examples.
It does. Things we're seeing more of.
Yeah, like extreme heat waves, really bad floods, stronger hurricanes.
Rising sea levels, too.
Right. Sea levels rising, more wildfires, and just generally more powerful storms.
Yeah.
These are things that, pose a real danger to all of us.
And it's interesting, the article points out it's not just one cause. Both human activities and natural factors contribute.
Oh, okay. Like what kind of natural factors?
Things like shifts in ocean currents, volcanic eruptions, even changes in the sun's energy output can play a role.
Huh. But the article also stresses something important about the speed of change now, right?
Yes, exactly. The Earth has definitely changed before, naturally.
Over millions of years, yeah.
But the current rate of change is what's really concerning scientists. It's happening much faster than many natural cycles.
Okay, that makes sense. The speed is the issue.
Precisely. And the article emphasizes that the consequences, the costs of this rapid change, they impact the long-term health of pretty much everything, plants, animals, insects, and, of course, us humans.
So dealing with climate change now is really about, ensuring there's a healthy planet for the future.
That's the core message, yeah. It's about future generations being able to live on a healthy planet.
And it's clearly not simple. The article mentioned these big international goals, like the Paris Agreement.
Limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, achieving net zero CO2 emissions by 2050.
Those sound like huge challenges.
They absolutely are, which leads us to what can be done. And the article is clear. It's not just about governments and big agreements.
Right. It mentions individual actions, too.
Yes, things like recycling, being more energy efficient in our homes and daily lives. These things do play a role.
So it really drives home that idea that everyone kind of has a part to play. It's a global thing needing a global effort.
Communities working together, individuals making changes. It all adds up.
Okay, so let's maybe dig a bit deeper into how climate change is actually affecting the planet. The article really points the finger at human activities, doesn't it? Especially burning fossil fuels.
Yes, that's identified as a major driver.
Right.
Burning coal, oil, and gas.
And when we do that, it releases these gases, right? The ones that trap heat.
That's it. The article names the main ones: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. We call them greenhouse gases.
Greenhouse gases, right.
And this process, it leads to what's called the greenhouse effect. Basically, as we put more of these gases up there, the atmosphere traps more heat.
Like a thicker blanket around the Earth.
That's a good analogy, yeah. It holds in more heat, causing the planet's average temperature to rise global warming, which then disrupts all the natural climate patterns.
Okay. And the article makes a really important point here, kind of an unfair one.
About who gets affected most.
Yeah. It says that often the people suffering the most from the impacts are those in economically disadvantaged communities, the ones who've often contributed the least to the problem in the first place.
That's a critical point about climate justice, absolutely. So moving on to specific impacts, the article really highlights the increase in extreme weather.
That seems to be one of the most visible things, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. As the planet warms, some places get hotter and drier, others get wetter.
More intense heat waves in some areas, more heavy rain and flooding in others, maybe more severe drought somewhere else.
Exactly. And these shifts, they really affect our everyday lives, where we can live safely, how we grow our food, how we travel, even our jobs.
And speaking of food, that's a major concern mentioned.
A huge one. The article explains how floods and droughts are destroying farms and crops worldwide.
You give specific examples, right? Like the Lake Chad Basin in Africa.
Yes, severe droughts there leading to food shortages. And that region is warming up like 1.5 times faster than the global average.
Wow.
And it also mentions unusual storms, like in Iowa in the U.S., damaging grain crops significantly.
So the knock-on effect is less food available and prices go up.
Precisely. And as the article points out, this hits hardest for people already struggling to afford food. And the projections suggest it's going to get worse, especially in areas already facing food insecurity.
That's sobering. And it's not just food. The article talks about serious effects on human health, too.
Extreme weather itself is dangerous, right? Intense heat waves, prolonged cold snaps. They're especially risky for vulnerable people.
People without resources to protect themselves.
Exactly. And it's not just the direct impact of temperature. The article notes that warmer temperatures and more flooding can help diseases spread more easily.
Like mosquito-borne diseases, maybe.
That kind of thing, yes. And the World Health Organization, the WHO, they have some pretty stark projections.
Yeah.
They estimate climate change could cause around 250,000 additional deaths per year between 2030 and 2050.
250,000 extra deaths. From what?
From things like heat stress, malaria, malnutrition, and diarrhea, all linked back to the changing climate.
Wow. Okay. And what about the impact on, nature itself, ecosystems?
Another major focus in the article. Extreme heat harms plants and animals everywhere. The UN estimates that over 1 million species are currently at risk of extinction.
1 million species. That's hard to even comprehend.
It's a staggering number. And the article looks at potential future warming, too. Like if temperatures go up by 4 degrees over, which is about 2.2 degrees C.
What happens then?
Well, it could mean much more frequent and intense heat waves, the Arctic Ocean possibly becoming ice-free in the summer 10 times more often.
10 times more often, wow.
And the destruction of most of the world's coral reefs, which are vital habitats, right? Home to millions of species. Losing them would be devastating.
Absolutely devastating for ocean life.
And the changes continue. Deserts are getting bigger, forests are struggling less rain, more wildfires, and the ice sheets, Greenland and Antarctica,
they're melting faster.
shrinking at an accelerating rate, yes. The article gives some huge numbers for ice loss just in recent years, billions of tons.
It's hard to picture that amount of ice just gone.
It really is. Then the article uses this phrase, the ocean is boiling.
That sounds dramatic. What does it mean?
It refers to ocean temperatures rising along with land temperatures, and this is a massive threat to marine life, marine ecosystems.
Like the coral reefs we just mentioned.
Exactly. The stat that half of the world's coral reefs have died in just the last 30 years, that really shows the impact.
Half in 30 years. That's incredibly fast.
And the projection, that up to 90% could die in the next 20 years. It's deeply concerning for the oceans.
Unbelievable. And all this warming and melting ice, it leads to sea level rise, right?
That's the direct consequence. The article states sea levels have risen about 8 inches or 20 centimeters in the last 100 years.
8 inches might not sound like a lot, but for coastal areas.
It's a huge deal. It puts coastal communities and low-lying areas at serious risk of flooding, erosion, storm surges.
The article mentions some places specifically.
Yeah, Pacific Island nations potentially becoming uninhabitable, and even major coastal cities like Miami in the U.S. are highlighted as being increasingly vulnerable.
So putting this all together, the article really builds a strong case for why climate change is, well, a critical issue.
Absolutely. Driven largely by human-caused greenhouse gas increases on top of natural climate changes. And the concerning thing is global emissions are still going up.
Still rising, despite knowing all this. But importantly, the article doesn't just leave us with the problems. It talks about taking action.
Yes, it definitely emphasizes that solutions exist and action is needed from governments, businesses, nonprofits, and individuals too.
So what's the key takeaway on solutions?
The main thrust seems to be transitioning to cleaner energy sources, things like solar, wind.
Green energy.
Yes, and adopting more sustainable practices generally in how we live, how we work, how we consume.
And it loops back to that idea of individual responsibility, doesn't it? That we all have a role.
It does. Making conscious choices to reduce our own environmental impact, our carbon footprint, The article even mentions a company, Palmetto, working on accelerating that clean energy shift.
Right, through technology and bigger scale changes. And it suggests things like looking into solar power for your own home as one possible action.
Exactly. It's presented as one way individuals can participate in the solution.
Okay, so if we were to sort of summarize the main point from our discussion today.
I'd say the key takeaway is that climate change isn't just things getting a bit warmer. It's a really complex, interconnected issue.
Yeah, with far-reaching consequences.
Right. Affecting almost everything: extreme weather, our food, our health, the planet's ecosystems, the oceans. It's all linked.
And while the scale of the challenge is, frankly, quite daunting.
It is, but the article also suggests there's still a path forward. Taking action matters. Even seemingly small actions, like just getting informed, understanding the issue.
Like what we're trying to do here.
Exactly. And exploring options like cleaner energy. It all contributes to that bigger global effort.
So, maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Well, perhaps think about this. What's one small change, just one thing you might consider in your daily life that could lessen your environmental impact?
That's a good challenge.
And remember, learning about these things, whether it's improving your English or understanding global issues like climate change, it really empowers you to engage with the world in more meaningful ways.